Not quite the way I planned on starting today's podcast, but the football world has been rocked by some devastating news this morning. We've just learned that Liverpool star Diogo Jota has sadly passed away at the age of 28, having been involved in a car accident. His brother, who was with him, has also sadly passed away as well. And yes, we're going to talk transfers, and yes, we're going to round up the latest Arsenal news, but I didn't think it would be right to start anywhere else. I think we've got to pay tribute to Diogo Jota. We've got to recognize the size of this tragedy and how horrible this news is. I mean, I popped out this morning. I popped out to get some shopping, and I got home from dropping my little boy off at about 9 o'clock, and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to go and do some shopping now before I do the podcast, so I don't eat into my day later on. And as I was driving, my WhatsApp group with my friends started popping off, and I clicked on it when I got to the sort of the red light just to have a quick glimpse at what was being said, and I saw a screenshot of the Diogo Jota news, and honestly, I felt sick. This is horrible, horrible, devastating, heartbreaking news, and all I can think about at the moment is what his family are going through. You know, newly married last week, from what I'm reading. He's got 3 young children. Man, I can't even put it into words. I'm struggling to find the words. I'm not normally lost for words, but I really am now. It puts into context a few things, doesn't it? A, that life is incredibly short and precious, and B, the football and the rivalries that we all live and breathe and that we get angry and frustrated about, they don't mean anything, man. Because you don't need to be a Liverpool supporter to understand the level of devastation this tragic accident has left behind it. And your heart hurts whoever you support. And this is horrible, horrible stuff. And yeah, I know there's lots of Diogo Jota tributes in the comments section at the moment. Just reading through what you guys have been saying. Awful news. What a tragedy, says Daniel. Sam says, I'm numb. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Really, really sad. Really, I don't even know what to say, guys. I genuinely don't know what to say. Rather than sort of talking about, you know, how his family are going to cope and all the rest of it, because the answer is I don't know. I think the best way to pay tribute to Diogo Jota, as far as I can tell, at least from my perspective, is to pay tribute to what a fantastic player he was. Really, really talented footballer, really good, potent forward, a player that used to scare the living daylights out of me whenever we came up against him. You know, I remember always looking out for Jota on the team news first, before most other players. And even when we're playing Liverpool, who have, you know, so many excellent players and have had Mo Salah in that team for quite some time, I always looked for Diogo Jota because he had this incredible record against us, didn't he? Seemed like a really down-to-earth and friendly guy as well. I didn't meet him. I never had the pleasure, but I do know a couple of people that I work with, a couple of colleagues who spent some time with him doing like shoots on around FIFA games and things like that. And yeah, he was, from all accounts, a top guy. And this is really, really devastating news, you know, and I can only imagine that there is a lot of raw emotion floating around right now. And, you know, Liverpool will do their bit and they will pay tribute to Diogo Jota. And Liverpool are great at rallying together when it comes to things like this. And I'm sure they'll do him proud. And yeah, just to make that point again, rivalry doesn't mean anything. Football, you know, it's important, but as was once said, it's the most important of the least important things. And that really, really does hit home today. So, yeah, sad news regarding Diogo Jota. I don't really know what else to say about it because I'm still processing it myself. I mean, we're recording this less than an hour after the news has broken. Just reading through the tributes online, I feel like I've got a lump in my throat. Yeah, horrible news. And I guess we should probably wrap this section up by just reiterating again what a fantastic footballer he was. and how much he'll be missed in the footballing world. But all of that feels very insignificant at the moment because there's a family who are going through this at the moment, and our thoughts are with them, of course. Okay, let's talk Arsenal. Difficult stream to do this one. Really, really difficult stream to do because I know that there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of you here to hear about transfers, and we're going to talk about transfers, of course. But there's a part of me that is going to probably talk about, well, in fact, I know I'm going to talk about transfers in a much more blasé way today. And I'm probably not going to get as animated because, again, if you're talking about football versus real life and the issues that come with real life and the sadness that is going to be left behind, it's difficult. Like I'm not going to sit here and start moaning and effing and blinding and jumping up. I mean, not that I do that too much anyway, but I'm not going to sit here and lose my head about transfers. We'll talk about the news and we'll provide some thoughts on it, but it doesn't feel important today, does it? It just doesn't. Anyway, let's begin with some David Ornstein chat, because David Ornstein has been talking about some of Arsenal's transfer business, some of the targets, some of what we hope and think that the Gunners are going to do over the course of what remains of this transfer window. He was talking on the Athletics podcast yesterday about Noni Madueke. Now, this is a report that's been going around for a while that Arsenal have an interest in Noni Madueke, that he is someone they are considering a move for. I know a lot of Arsenal fans are against this. A lot of Arsenal fans don't feel necessarily that Noni Madueke would be a good fit or a good use of funds because of the fact that, there are other positions that we need to address. And Noni Madueke predominantly, doesn't he, likes to play from that right-hand side. And I don't think people view Noni Madueke coming in as that much of a level raiser. People will look at Ethan Nwaneri and think he can do that job from the right-hand side in the absence of Bukayo Saka. You want him to kick on and continue developing, don't you? So you almost don't want to make a signing that potentially blocks his path and makes it more difficult for him. I would rather personally bet on Ethan Nwaneri improving and continuing to develop than I would before I bet on Noni Madueke at a big price, which is what's being talked about. So what has David Ornstein said exactly? He says that Arsenal are looking at him. He says that Arsenal have long been searching for some backup and competition for Saka. They looked at Brian and Mbeumo, among others. That didn't work out. And he's on course to join Manchester United. David Ornstein also went on to say that a lot of what appeals to Arsenal about Noni Madueke is the fact that he can play from both sides. Yes, he can in theory, but I think he's much more effective when he operates from the right. He said that he'll be known to many of the Arsenal players already, London-based already, and that Chelsea are always open to conversations around trading. And we know that Chelsea have been open to selling players to us before. We talk a lot about the difficulties that you sometimes face when you try and sign from rivals. And often that sees the price being put up. And I think we felt that a little bit with some of the Chelsea players that we've signed over the years. So you do feel that, but it doesn't feel like there's this really, what's the word? This really kind of strong rivalry between at least the club's hierarchies. I mean, the fans, it's different, right? You're talking about something completely different. But when it comes to those running the ship at Chelsea and those calling the shots at Arsenal, there is enough of a relationship for business to get done. And you've seen lots of business happen between the two clubs recently. So you would never rule out Chelsea based on their rivalry with us. I think most people would be able to put that to one side, having seen them do multiple deals with Arsenal in the not too distant past. David Ornstein says Arsenal are clearly doing some work on this. Conversations mainly, though, taking place on the players' side. He says at the moment, he doesn't know of any club to club conversations, but that can change very quickly, and it's a fluid conversation at the moment. He said that Chelsea want a sizable fee for Noni Madueke. Some people reported over £45 million. David Ornstein said that he's heard higher than that, but it is an active conversation that conversation between Arsenal and Noni Madueke. He talked about Arsenal spinning lots of plates at the moment and that the number 9 is the priority. So I'm not sure that we're going to get any real updates on wingers before we get sort of something on the centre forward front. I think that is what Arsenal are working hardest on at the moment. We know there are 2 players that are very much in the frame at the minute. There might be others that we just haven't caught wind of yet. But number 9 is the priority. David Ornstein reiterating that point. On the left wing position, this was a really, really interesting bit from David Ornstein, because a lot of us have been under the impression that we're looking to bring in a left winger regardless of what the future holds for Gabriel Martinelli and Leandro Trossard. But it appears that Gabriel Martinelli and his future is actually key to what Arsenal plan to do this summer. And I'll explain why. David Ornstein, speaking on the Athletic FC podcast, said, if Martinelli was to leave, you could see Arsenal bringing in a top left-sided winger. If he's not to leave, I don't think so. He goes on to mention that in the Athletic, they reported on Rodrigo and Anthony Gordon, but he thinks that that is only if Gabriel Martinelli leaves. He doesn't think that it would be the case that Arsenal would still be in pursuit of those players if Gabriel Martinelli was to stay put. Now, this is really, really interesting, because I think myself and a lot of others have been under the impression that Arsenal are looking to bring in a left winger. We've been talking about all sorts of players, Rodrigo, Leao. We've been through lists and lists and lists of potential candidates. The Noni Madueke stuff makes sense in the view of, well, if you did bring in another winger, it's probably on the right-hand side where you're short of another natural one, right? So that makes a bit of sense. But I've always been under the impression that someone could play on both sides would be the right fit and the perfect player to go for. That's why Rodrigo seems great. Left winger by trade, probably does his best work from the left-hand side, but has played the majority of the time for Real Madrid off the right-hand side. So you'd have a confidence, wouldn't you, in a belief that he could do both jobs. That's why he feels like such a good fit. But this comment from David Ornstein is kind of cast into doubt now whether Arsenal have the funds to go and get a Rodrigo or a Rafael Leao, for instance, without moving on somebody like Gabriel Martinelli, who you could expect to get a decent amount of money for. There'll be people screaming back at this and saying, well, why don't we sell Leandro Trossard? Well, Leandro Trossard doesn't have anywhere near the value of Gabriel Martinelli for a number of reasons: age, contract situation, etc., etc. But Leandro Trossard is not mentioned by David Ornstein. It feels like Gabriel Martinelli could be the key. He's the one that could have a big impact on what our transfer plans look like from here on in and between now and the end of the window. So that's one to keep an eye on. Right, going to take a really, really short pause. Going to bring you an update on Eberechi Eze. As per Fabrizio Romano, we'll take a few of your questions, but we're not going to go the full length of time today because with everything that's happened this morning, I don't know. To me, I don't know. Now that I've got into the podcast, it just doesn't feel 100% right. But short pause, and we'll be back.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe.
That's right. If you haven't done so already, leave a like on the video. That really, really does help. There's over 700 of you with me live right now. If we could get to 300-400 likes, that would be just amazing. It really, really does help the podcast. Subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't done so already. Help us on our way to the next milestone. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please do leave us a review. Just a quick note on the likes via YouTube. Don't like the chat, like the video itself. That's what I'm after. That's what really, really helps. Okay, Fabrizio Romano has been talking Eberechi Eze on his YouTube channel. He said that Arsenal are working on an Eze deal and that talks are, it's his phrase of the window, concrete. He says that the player is keen on joining Mikel Arteta's side. And I think the significant part of this update is where Fabrizio Romano reveals that not only are Arsenal in conversations with the player's representatives and with the player, which we heard over the weekend, but actually they are also in conversations right now with Crystal Palace, which I think is really significant because it just backs up that interest, doesn't it? And it shows you that Arsenal are serious about doing a deal. Now, the player does have a 67.5, 68 million pound release clause, something like that. But the feeling is that Arsenal would like to do this deal at around about £60 million. Now, I think they can. I know that there'll be a lot of people out there saying just pay whatever the release clause is and get it done. I feel like if we've done our bit in terms of convincing Eze that we're the club for him and, that we're going to do what we can to get him in through the door, I don't think we have to worry about others coming in and triggering that release clause, because if somebody did, we could just match that. And if we've already got Eze's buy-in and we've already got him on board, then that isn't going to be an issue. I talked about it on the pod the other day. I don't want to see Arsenal go and make some like lowball, borderline insulting offer to Crystal Palace. I don't think that's the way to go. I think that would be wrong. I think that would be misguided. I think that would be a terrible, terrible way to approach this. But the reason I say that for 60 million, it's doable is because, as we mentioned again on the pod the other day, I don't want to repeat myself in full, but just to give you guys a gist of what I was saying for those that maybe didn't catch that episode. I think for someone like Eze, you look at his situation and yes, he's got 2 years left on his contract. But after this summer, this is the last summer whereby he's not going into the final year of his contract. So if you wait till next summer to sell him, he'll be going into the final year. That significantly damages his value. Plus he's a year older, etc., etc. Yes, the release clause is where it is. But if nobody's showing a willingness to trigger that release clause now, they're not going to trigger it in 12 months' time, when, as I say, his value decreases, and they'll be further away from what they see his value as to where that release clause is. So in my opinion, this is the last summer that Crystal Palace can get big, big money for Eberechi Eze. And so if I were them and the player was really pushing for it and was really on board, I would be open to doing a deal at slightly less. Again, you can't be insulting. Again, you can't be seen to be taking the pee out of Crystal Palace, of course. But I think it's a deal that can be done at around about £60 million. So I expect Arsenal to try that first. See how it goes. If we don't make the breakthrough, if we struggle and you really want the player, then go and trigger his release clause. From what we're hearing about this release clause, there is a way of paying it in installments as well, which would suit Arsenal down to the ground. It could even be partly why Arsenal look at Eberechi Eze and think he'd be a really, really good option. I'm not saying it's the sole reason. It isn't. Of course it's not. But I do think Eberechi Eze represents a really good option for Arsenal for a number of reasons. And I think they'll be looking, if they can, to try and deal it a little bit lower. And then they'll see that as a really good deal, wouldn't they? So, yeah, let's see how it goes on that front. Right, we're going to take a really, really, really short pause again. When we come back, we'll take a handful of your questions. We've got an Eberechi Eze scouting video as well coming out later today. I've recorded it this morning. I haven't had a chance to cut it up yet and post it. I'll be honest. The Jota news just completely derailed my morning. And so, yeah, I haven't had a chance to cut it up, but I will do that at some point today. And that'll be with you a little bit later on, probably early evening now. Thank you to all the patrons that have signed up over the last few days. Been a real influx of you. Thank you. Really, really appreciate the love and support. We've got the Eze one coming out today. We've got a Mosquera one coming out over the weekend as well. So there's 2 more scouting videos on top of the ones that you can already check out. So if you're waiting for those videos, fine. But if you sign up now, you'll be able to access the Gyökeres, Sesko, Zubimendi, and Norgard scouting videos. When we do come to announce Martin Zubimendi, now I was under the impression that that was going to happen today. Just my opinion. I haven't been told that categorically, but I was under the impression that that was going to happen today. Now, I personally, if I were in charge of Arsenal Football Club and in charge of that particular department, I personally wouldn't announce it today now. I don't think it's right. I don't think it sits right. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I was going to make our Patreon scouting video available to everybody for 24 hours once the Zubimendi announcement come to celebrate it. I don't really want to do something like that, something celebratory like that, because of what's happened today. It might not have happened today, whenever it happened, but because of what we've learned of today. I don't know if it was early hours this morning. I'm not sure exactly when the accident, the tragic accident took place, but it just doesn't feel right to me. I hope, I really do, that Arsenal don't go on and announce the Zubimendi transfer today, yeah, there's going to be a few idiots that are moaning and complaining. Oh, it's another day. We're 3 days into July and we still haven't got the announcement of this signing. What are we playing at? It's disgusting, blah, blah, blah. You will get that. You will get that because there's rage baiters out there and that's all they're after. But don't listen to that noise. Today is not the day, I don't think. I think we should hold fire on that. I think we should hold fire on that as a football club, and we will hold fire on just releasing that. That we're not going to take it off of Patreon and put it on all the other platforms. You'll have to go over to Patreon to see it, but we will unlock it for 24 hours once the Zubimendi signing is confirmed. So give those of you that aren't patrons and are maybe on the fence about it, considering the opportunity to check out what we do over there. But anyway, let's take some of your questions. Let's take some of your thoughts from the live chat. Let's see what you got. Oh man, still can't get over that news. Just can't. What are you guys saying? Lots of you agreeing with me that we should kind of hold the announcement. Matt says, I don't think Arsenal will announce Zubimendi today after the Jota news. Yeah, my gut is that they won't. I'd be very, very surprised if they did. You know, knowing some of the people that work in the kind of media and sort of public relations type roles, I think they will have the common sense to just put the brakes on that, even if it was due to come out today. Adam says, I'd wait a couple of days. Absolutely. Absolutely. Archangel says, time to show our class again as a great football club. Completely agree. Andy says, 1 day or more since it's done doesn't matter anyway. Exactly that. Exactly that. Afsar says, Madueke is quick, can dribble, fast, and can score. Also an England international, so why not sign him? So if we were talking about Noni Madueke as a third attacking signing, and I include Eberechi Eze as an attacking signing, by the way, because he's an attacking midfielder / wide player. That's the role I envisage him playing at Arsenal. I know David Ornstein said that he'd be a kind of 8-10, and I get that. He can play those roles as well. But I would see him as a player coming in to bolster our attack rather than our core midfield. So because I see Eze as an attacking signing, and because I think we're going to get a striker, if we then go and get Noni Madueke as the third player, I've been saying this all along, I still wouldn't say I'm 100% behind it, or that you know, it's a signing I would make personally, but I would be certainly more open-minded about it and more tolerant of it as an idea. But then when I hear about the price, that completely puts me off. North of £45 million. No, you should not be paying anywhere near that for Noni Madueke. If you're going to go get another attacking signing in for around about the £40 million mark, go and get Ollie Watkins. Like, genuinely, like, I would rather we spend that money on Ollie Watkins than Noni Madueke. I just don't see it as being a viable option. I think he's one of a number of players on a list that keeps being reported, and I don't think that there's anything more than that at this stage. I don't think he's a priority. Yeah, for me, I'm struggling to get on board with it. I've got to be honest. Gunnar Ross says, why are we still talking about Madueke? Fabrizio already dismissed the gossip. Plus, we already have Nwaneri and Vieira returning. So Vieira's going to be leaving, I think. I think Arsenal are going to be working on moving Fabio Vieira out of the club. So I wouldn't count him as an option. And Fabrizio didn't completely pour cold water on the Madueke stuff. What he said was that we haven't got to the stage where we're making offers. And in fairness, most people have said that there is an interest and that there might have been some informal talks between Madueke's representatives and Arsenal, but that's it. Nobody's saying that we've gone on to make a bid. And we're in serious sort of, as Fabrizio Romano would say, concrete discussions around that. So yeah, I'm not saying that it's far down the line or anything like that, but to me, it just doesn't make sense. Jack says, if we sign Eze and Madueke, where does Nwaneri fit in? Nwaneri still fits in the same place, you know, as someone that can play as an 8, as someone that can play as a second striker, as someone that can play on the right wing. I don't think we will sign Eze and Madueke because I do think Ethan Nwaneri will be in the thoughts of Mikel Arteta. This kid broke through, did really, really well, really, really quickly, impressed, showed everybody what he's made of, what he's capable of. A little bit of a drop off at the end of the season, but I think that was down to fatigue and sort of fitness stuff, because he'd been thrust into a sort of situation that I don't think the club were sort of wanting to put him into. It was more out of desperation than anything else. Thankfully, when we threw him in the deep end, he swam and he didn't sink, which was great. But I still think they'll be thinking a lot and long and hard about his development and really believing that he can be a top player for us moving forward. So I'd be shocked if we sign both Eze and Madueke, to be honest. I don't think that happens. And obviously, we've got Max Dowman coming through as well. Now, I think Dowman is probably going to play more games for the under-21s next season. In the PL2, he has been given a shirt number for the under-21s, and there might be a situation and an occasion where he's called up to the first team, maybe in a cup game or something, to kind of show him that there is that clear pathway through, keep him interested, keep him motivated, keep him pushing, keep him fighting. But I think we've got some really good young players around the football club at the moment already. And the idea of going and spending north of 40 million on another young player to kind of potentially stunt their growth, it doesn't make that much sense to me. If Madueke was top level, if he was a really great player and a player that I just found irresistible, then I'd be all for it. But I don't feel that way about Noni Madueke. I don't. I think he can be useful. I think he can be a threat. I think he can be a danger. But I do think, like a lot of players around his age, he can blow hot and cold. And if we've got that sort of money to spend, go and bring in players that you know what you're going to get from. I don't think you know what you're going to get necessarily from Noni Madueke. Andrew says, is Madueke an improvement on Sterling? I think anyone would be an improvement on the version of Raheem Sterling that we got. I don't know what happened there. I really don't. Rumble says, do we still go for versatility, or is it time we buy players for their natural positions? I think it depends on the area of the team that you're looking at. So like where we're talking about bringing in a defender in Christian Mosquera, obviously right-sided centre-back, I don't mind if we go and get a centre-back that can play full-back as well, because we're probably going to need that at some point. But when it comes to the attacking positions, I do think we need the right fit for the right spaces. We need our Sescos, we need our Yokerezes, players that are actual centre forwards. We need wingers that are actual dynamic, attacking, threatening wingers. So, yeah, I kind of agree with you overall and generally speaking, but I think there are some positions where I'm actually open to the whole idea of maybe prioritizing some versatility. Temiola says, with regards to Madueke and Nkunku, is it possible for fans to file a restraining order on behalf of the club against the player in order to prevent them from signing for the club? Do you know what? I was speaking to a mate of mine, a colleague who works on TalkSport, the brilliant Ollie Klink, and he sent me a text yesterday and he said, what do you think of this Madueke stuff, Harry? And I texted him back saying, if ever there was a signing to create the meltdown of all meltdowns, the Noni Madueke signing at £45 million plus would be it. And I'm assuming people would feel that way about Christopher Nkunku as well, just judging by your comment there. Okay, right. I am going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me. Really, really appreciate it. It's been a difficult podcast to do today just because obviously we had some news and we had some updates and we had some stories that we wanted to touch on and make sure that we covered here on the Chronicles of a Gooner, but it all felt, as I was delivering it, a little bit insignificant. And not because Arsenal aren't trying to do the right things or, because we should be disappointed and frustrated, but just because we've had a real reminder this morning of how insignificant football can be, how short life can be. And so I just want to wrap up once again by paying tribute to Diogo Jota, sending my best to his friends, family, and everyone that's been affected by this horrible tragedy. It's really, really sad news. Really, really sad news. And yeah, I think it's a sad day for the family. We know that. We don't need to even talk about that. They must be going through hell at the moment. But there'll be Liverpool fans out there that have been really hit hard by this, and again, put the rivalry to one side, put out an olive branch because this is difficult. I remember how I felt when Jose Antonio Reyes passed away, and he wasn't even an Arsenal player at that point, and it still felt horrible. So they're going to be going through it as well. And so, yeah, thoughts are with everyone impacted, everyone affected. And yeah, life is short. Keep your close ones close. Tell them you love them. Tell them good night and all the rest of it. And yeah, hopefully tomorrow is a better day. All the best, guys. Take care. Have a wonderful day, and up the Arsenal. Goodbye.